listener production.
Hello, Sasha Barbagat here with The Briefing. She might be one of the biggest pop stars in the world at the moment, but Chappell Roan wants you to know she's not impressed with some of her fans. In a viral post on TikTok this week, the Midwest princess singer-songwriter called out what she described as creepy, entitled behaviour from people approaching her on the street. But what, if anything, do major celebrities owe their superfans? And what do we owe them?
You're getting hundreds, if not thousands, if even potentially millions of demands on your time, demands for attention, and demands from people who think they know you really well to interact with you in the way that they've envisioned.
More on the parasocial relationships between us and celebs in the second half of this episode. First, though, it's time for all the day's biggest headlines with Katrina Blowers. Today's Friday, August 23.
G'day guys. Hi Sasha. Well, the body of British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch has now been recovered after the sinking of his super yacht in Italy. The Italian Coast Guard has confirmed the news and that his 18-year-old daughter Hannah is still missing. The identities of the other bodies recovered from the wreckage have not been officially confirmed yet. So this $56 million super yacht sank off the coast of Italy on Monday local time when a freak storm hit, producing a waterspout that's thought to have significantly damaged the vessel. But investigators are still looking into this tragedy to try to determine if human error was involved. And Sasha, one avenue of inquiry is that the keel of the super yacht, now that's the fin-like mechanism that sticks out of the bottom of the boat and, you know, it helps to keep it stable during high winds. Well, this was up at the time of the storm and investigators are going to look into why that was.
Yeah, and one of the other things they're going to look at is how the vessel sank so quickly. Reports are it was within minutes of this storm hitting. And they're also going to investigate how the crew responded to reports of bad weather. So the inclement weather that was on the way was forecast. The intensity of what happened was unforeseeable, according to witnesses and people who were there. But in terms of whether the crew responded appropriately to news that there was going to be some dangerous weather around. Andrew Tate has been put under house arrest in Romania as he's investigated for new and serious allegations, including sex with a minor. The highly controversial influencer, who spreads messages of extreme and toxic misogyny and sexism, is already facing human trafficking and rape charges in the country. Prosecutors have now levelled fresh allegations against the 36-year-old concerning 35 victims, including one that was 15 at the time of the alleged crime. Romania's anti-organised crime agency says the accused was grooming vulnerable people who were forced to produce pornographic material for online broadcast. When confronted by the media outside court, Tate says the new investigation was, quote, a setup.
Bill Shorten has defended changes coming for the NDIS after backlash from disability advocates. So the bill cuts around $14 billion from the scheme and changes what supports those on the NDIS can access. It had nearly 100 amendments before being passed. A list of the changes is still under construction, but the NDIS minister says the changes are designed to guarantee the scheme's long-term future. So I think everybody knows there have been huge problems with the NDIS until now. And Greens MP Elizabeth Watson-Brown said it was a very sad day, though, for the disability community. While the president of People with Disability Australia said they are deeply disappointed with the outcome, and these reforms are going to make it harder for people with disability to participate in our schools, workplaces and communities. Sasha, the cuts are a big blow for the NDIS, but the annual cost of the scheme is expected to grow from $35 billion in 2022-23 to more than $50 billion in 25-26. And there's even predictions that within a decade, it could cost up to $90 billion a year. So, you know, I think no one would disagree that changes needed to be made within this space. But it sounds like, you know, a lot of people are unhappy with what those changes are.
Yeah, I think the fact that the NDIS was such a huge moment and huge policy for the disability community, I think it's understandable that they feel fear at changes to the program and what that could mean for them and their lives. However, as you said, the cost had to be addressed. We don't know what the cuts are going to look like, so we'll have to wait and see. I did want to make mention of a previous episode we did actually with a disability advocate. We spoke to him about one of the items on the scheme that was facing being cut, and that was sexual services. We did that on the 10th of July. Really worth a listen to get that perspective. And the final day of the Democratic National Convention is happening today with the woman of the moment, Kamala Harris, to headline the event. She will formally accept her party's nomination to run for president in the keynote address, while delegates in the crowd are expected to wear white, which is the colour of the suffragette movement. Yesterday, we saw plenty of cheers, but also tears as Minnesota Governor Tim Walz formally accepted the nomination for running mate. His son Gus was seen bawling in the audience as his dad spoke.
It took Gwen and I years, but we had access to fertility treatments. And when our daughter was born, we named her Hope. Hope, Gus, and Gwen, you are my entire world, and I love you. I'm letting you in on how we started a family, because this is a big part about what this election is about. Freedom.
I just got to say, it was so refreshing to see a young man, he had a bit of a mullet cut going on, stand up, with tears streaming down his face, and he's pointing to his dad as Walz was saying those lines and saying, "That's my dad, that's my dad." It was so nice to see a young man so proudly showing his emotions, and without looking at the politics, it's quite clear that Tim Walz is, a fairly lovely family man. So it was really nice to just see that in the realm of politics in the US, which I think has been toxic for such a long time. But we will have a full wrap of the DNC and Harris's speech in this afternoon's ep of The Briefing as well.
Yeah, also worth pointing out that Oprah Winfrey spoke at the DNC, and apparently her appearance, there were rumours that she was going to speak, but it was so secretive that even during rehearsals, she showed up in disguise so no one would recognise her, wearing a hat and sunglasses and a face mask, which I always think draws more attention to you rather than less. But she attacked those childless cat lady comments as well, saying that, civilised debate is vital to democracy. So that's a pretty big name to get speaking at the DNC. And today we should point out that Donald Trump is campaigning at the US-Mexico border in Arizona and will reportedly meet with families who've been impacted by crimes carried out by undocumented immigrants.
Yeah, that's one of his big campaign platforms. Trump's is talking about, the border and how it hasn't been secure since Biden took office. So that's going to be a major focus of his today. Also, just one other little fun fact before we head into the weekend. It is Kamala and husband Doug Emhoff's 10-year wedding anniversary today, which is lovely. What a day for her to be formally accepting the nomination and carrying on the campaign, because I bet you she's not going to be seeing much of him over the next couple of months. Hey, no. Katrina, it is your last day with us here at The Briefing, and before we wrapped up and headed into our deep dive, I just wanted to say, not only on behalf of myself and the team who have worked with you over the last few years, but also our listeners who have come to know you and love what you offer to us and the program, we want to say thank you for being here, for sharing your incredible intelligence with us, and of course the news every morning. We have really loved having you part of the show, and we're going to miss you so much.
It has been such a joy, a deep, deep joy. Radio is one of my biggest loves, and to connect with people on this podcast. And it is a family. You guys have all jumped into my DMs and shared your thoughts on various episodes that we've done. And I'm truly grateful for being let into your ears in the morning and working with some of the very best journalists and producers in the country. This show has a huge future, so stick around. I'm certainly going to be listening while I'm walking my new puppy dog in the morning. And Sasha, you are one of the best humans I've ever worked with. And Helen, who's producing this show this morning too. So you're all in safe hands with The Briefing.
Oh, thank you, Katrina. As I said, we are going to miss you so much. Don't be a stranger. Maybe you can pop in for a deep dive every now and then. It is time now to get into our deep dive. We're looking at Chappell Roan, her relationship with her fans, but what they owe us and what we owe them.
If you saw a random woman on the street, would you yell at her from the car window? would you go up to a random lady and say, "Can I get a photo with you?" And she's like, "No, what the f-?" And then you get mad at this random lady?
Hey, Bension here. That was singer-songwriter, Midwest princess and pop megastar Chappell Roan on TikTok this week, calling out what she describes as creepy, entitled behaviour from some of her fans.
I don't want whatever the f you think you're supposed to be entitled to whenever you see a celebrity. It's weird how people think that you know a person just because you see them online or you listen to the art they make. That's f***ing weird.
Other celebrities like Justin Bieber and Game of Thrones actress Emilia Clarke have made similar complaints about fan behaviour. But this latest iteration has kicked off a massive conversation online about what we should expect from these people when they're out in the real world. Is it as simple as respecting the boundaries a famous person sets for themselves and others? Do celebrities experiencing worldwide fame and earning massive wealth from their fans owe those fans anything when they spot them on the street? And how should we think about our relationship with celebrities for whom we feel a personal kind of affection, even love, when we cannot really know them at all? Dr. Veronica Lamarche is a social psychologist and relationships researcher at the University of Essex. Veronica, thanks so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
How would you describe the relationship between a celebrity and a fan who really, really adores that celebrity?
That's something we might call a parasocial relationship. And what a parasocial relationship is effectively a one-sided relationship that people feel a really strong connection to a celebrity, a role model, even fictional characters. And often what it means is there's really no real opportunity for you to meet that person or interact with that person the way you would a friend, but you have that strong connection and think they're a friend in a similar way.
Is there a sense of entitlement that comes with that kind of relationship? And where do you think that sense might come from?
So I think it's important for us to understand that these parasocial relationships are exceptionally common. In our own research, we've shown that people from different age groups, all the way from teenagers through to people in their 70s, have these parasocial relationships. And over 50% of people we've talked to feel this sense of connection. So it doesn't necessarily mean that every single person who has this has that sense of entitlement. What we find is that there can be a sense of entitlement, just like you might feel entitled to a best friend's time or best friend's attention. We can sometimes feel entitled to our favorite celebrities, these people we have a deep connection with, giving us that same kind of energy back.
It might be hard for us mortals to imagine what it's like to have millions of adoring fans, but you might be better positioned than some others to have a crack. What do you think that might feel like on the other end?
I think it can be a double-edged sword in some ways. In some ways, it's going to feel really uplifting and exciting. All these people really care and value you. On the other hand, you're getting hundreds, if not thousands, if even potentially millions of demands on your time, demands for attention, and demands from people who think they know you really well to interact with you in the way that they've envisioned. So it can be this disconnect where you love and adore your fans because they mean so much to you. But at the same time, they're making all these weird requests and unusual requests that we maybe wouldn't even make on a close friend of ours.
Chappell Roan is now the latest celebrity to call out sort of entitled, creepy behaviour from their fans. She makes this argument that it might be quote unquote what you sign up for when you become famous, to be kind of hounded by people in public, but that doesn't make it right. What do you think about that argument from her?
I think a lot of the times this energy that's coming from fans is probably coming from a genuine place and a good place. You know, we talked about this love and adoration that they have for their parasocial relationship. But I think celebrities like Chappell Roan and other celebrities are completely right in setting healthy boundaries for themselves and communicating to their fans what they think is an appropriate behavior and what isn't an appropriate behavior. Again, mirroring exactly what our real life friends would do with us. Your best friend would tell you if something is or isn't okay to do. It's completely fine for this other person we have a connection with to do the same thing.
That said, if you are someone who spends years and years of your life following the work of a singer or a star, and you finally meet that person in what might be the only opportunity you ever get in your life to do so, what's an appropriate interaction in that moment?
I Again, this is coming from a place where you feel you have this real connection. And sometimes it's easy to forget that this person doesn't know who you are and doesn't know anything about you. They don't know the reason you're approaching them, even if it's with goodness in your heart. So I think, one, if you are making this decision to approach a celebrity and you know for a fact they haven't spoken about them not liking that kind of behavior, then, I think it's okay to approach them and be really mindful and respectful. And if they do reject you or say, now isn't the moment, now isn't the time, that's the right moment to say, I completely understand and I'm respecting these person's boundaries. I'm not entitled to their time just because they're in the public sphere.
In your opinion, where does the line from super fan to obsessive fan start? Where is that?
I think if we're talking about obsessive fans in a way that could become dangerous for these celebrities or really uncomfortable, I think an obsessive fan is someone who isn't respecting that person's boundaries. So, for example, they might be trying to find out or dig into their deep personal lives, aspects of their life that they deliberately try to keep private and separate from the public sphere. They might be disregarding the barriers that a celebrity has set for them. So if someone is saying, don't approach me at dinner, they're trying to figure out where they're going to dinner and approaching them anyways. And so I think the difference between a super fan and a fan with more entitled or problematic behaviors is this lack of respect for this person as a real person, just like we would hope that strangers would respect our own boundaries in life.
Is having parasocial relationships at all an unhealthy behavior, or can it be a healthy part of just living in the modern world?
It's an absolutely healthy part of living in the modern world. And as I said before, it's exceptionally common. Most of us end up forming a parasocial relationship with someone or even something. Again, I mentioned these can be relationships we form with fictional beings, movie characters, book characters. So it's completely normal. And actually what we found is people believe that their parasocial relationships can help them fulfill really important emotional needs in their life. So when they're feeling lonely, when they need to feel happy, when they want to share something positive. So they're part of a really healthy psychological toolkit that we have as humans, that we have this resource available to us. But like anything else in our lives, it can devolve into something unhealthy if we don't treat things the right way.
What role does social media play in all this, do you think?
So parasocial relationships are nothing new. We've seen them going back decades and decades and decades. You can think about Beatlemania being a form of it, decades ago. But social media creates a new opportunity where we almost have this continuous opportunity for interaction with some of our parasocial targets. So social media influencers, celebrities, musicians, they're often posting continuously online, sharing information about themselves, sharing parts of their personal lives with us in a way that we never really had access to before social media. And this can both be an awesome opportunity to really build those strong connections, both with your fan base and with your celebrity and this person that you admire. But it also means that people are getting this potentially continuous stream that's making them feel they have a more insight into the person than they would otherwise.
Do you think a celebrity who has made millions and millions of dollars and is in the throes of a glittering career does owe their fans something in those kinds of interactions? Or are they entitled to setting a really strong boundary of do not approach me, do not take photographs with me, etc.?
I think it's worth understanding that part of your fame and your celebrity notoriety is going to come from how well, especially in the social media age, how well you can foster those parasocial relationships with your fans. It is an advantage for celebrities to be making use of those psychological mechanisms, but ultimately it's up to you. And I think it's very important and very healthy for celebrities to set those boundaries from themselves and to set them clearly so that their fans know exactly where they stand and what is and isn't appropriate behavior when it comes to seeing them in real life or having the opportunities to meet them in different contexts.
Finally, why does this behaviour seem to keep on repeating itself? We have seen countless examples of celebrities and fans with these kinds of unhealthy parasocial relationships. Do you think that there's a way in which our society can start to move on and do this kind of relationship better?
I think what we often are seeing are the extremes. As I mentioned, parasocial relationships are exceptionally common, and most people are experiencing these types of relationships in one way or the other, and it's not leading to problems. platforms. So most people are able to manage this. I think it's part of a healthy social media education program and helping especially young people understand what's real, what's not real when it comes to social media and how to set appropriate boundaries with the people that they are seeing on social media. So it's a good opportunity to be helping people learn those skill sets early on.
Well, Veronica, this has been such a fascinating chat. Thanks so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been really lovely.
Dr. Veronica Lamarche there. That's it for this episode of The Briefing. We'd love it if you could share this app with someone you think might enjoy it. And if you want to keep up with our other content, you can check us out on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast and on TikTok and YouTube. Just search Listener Newsroom. We'll be back in your feed this Arvo from 3 p.m. I'm Bension Siebert. Catch you next time.
Listener.